used to book ACDC a lot, mainly because their mentor and big brother, George, who Bon and I had befriended during our Valentine's days when they were in the Easy Beats. And George and I remained, I wouldn't say friends, but certainly acquaintances. One time, after they'd been down 4 or 5 times, George gave me a call and said, you know, what happened to the money that the boys got last time? They didn't get any. And I said, well, I gave it to their manager. And he said, well, listen, do me a favour, he's going to get the sack. Next time they're over, give it to Malcolm. He's the man you give the cash to now. And he said, by the way, do you know any singers around? Because we're going to sack the singer as well.
Vince could think of only one suitable replacement, and Bon Scott's years in the wilderness would soon be at an end. Vince took Bon to see the young band at a gig in Adelaide.
The Bridgeway Hotel.
I was enthusiastic. I really wanted him to get in the band. I was really enthusiastic. We were out the front looking at the band, and I said, what do you think? They're great, aren't they? And he said, well, they're all right, but, you know, they're only kids. They're a bit young, aren't they? And I said, yeah, but, you know, just listen, they really rock. They've got that Chuck Berry thing, they've got that Stones thing, you know, they're going to do it. He said, oh, yeah, I think they'll do it. But he said, I'm just not sure, you know, would they have anything to you know, have any common ground? He said, you know, I've got a bit more experience than they have. I said, okay, well, you know, let's go back and meet them. And I went back and we met them. And prior to that, I'd mentioned to them, I was backstage and mentioned to them and said, you know, they said, well, come on, Vince, we've got a singer. And I said, yeah, you know, what about Bon? And they said, oh, he's a bit old, isn't he? And I said, mate, he'll rock the arse off you guys. Make no mistake about that. And they said, oh, yeah. I mean, Malcolm and Angus were kids then, as you know, I wasn't much older, but the reality is that I knew it'd fit. I knew it'd fit. And so they went back that night to the house of the bass player of Fraternity in his basement, and they jammed and they did, you know, Chuck Berry songs, and they did just 12-bar rock and roll songs, and they gelled, and they were up all night. The next day, Bon came home, came in, packed his bag, and I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Sydney. And I said, what are you going up there to live? And he said, no, I'm joining the band.
Bon returned to Sydney with the band, and while they waited for an appropriate time to sack Dave Evans, he got to know the various members well.
Bon was a funny guy. He's very cheeky, always laughing, always joking, live wire, nice bloke. Yeah, he was fun to have around, Bon.